Hey, welcome back to the series of accountancy. In this video, we are learning about income and expenditure account and the formats, features of income and expenditure account. So it's all about the income and expenditure. Income and expenditure account is commonly known as a summary of all cash transaction of that particular year. It is exclusively prepared by not-profit organization. It is very similar to profit and loss account when we compare to normal business enterprises. It always record all revenues and all income, including outstanding expenses, or we call as non-cash transaction. It has two sides. In debit side, it always record expenses. In credit side, it always. When we compare to receipts and payment account, it's vice versa. So this is income and expenditure account. Before explaining about the formats of income and expenditure account, I need to finish up with features of income and expenditure account. Like there are 6-7 points which will be asked for 2 marks in exam. I'll be explaining all 7. So starting the first one, it's a summary of income and expenditure for a particular financial year. It only records the particular, or we call as a current year, summary of all transaction. It won't record the previous year or the advances. So it only records the current years. And moving on to the second, it is just like profit and loss account of business concern. It is very similar to profit and loss account. And third feature is income always recorded in the credit side and expenses are recorded in debit side. The fourth one is it only include revenue expenditure or revenue income. It won't record capital expenditure, capital income. And the fifth point is it records even outstanding expenses and outstanding income on the current year. So when we are doing a receipts and payment account, we were not recording the outstanding expenses or outstanding income, but here we'll record outstanding expenses, outstanding income of current year. The sixth feature is it records even non-cash transaction, just opposite to receipts and payment account. In receipts and payment account, we are not recording depreciation, that is non-cash transaction items. Here in income and expenditure account, we will be recording these kind of expenses income, which is called as not cash transaction. Moving on to next point, it can be balanced by representing either surplus or deficit. Surplus is, you can look here, this is called surplus. Surplus is nothing but when income is more than the expenses, we call as surplus. When expenses is more than income, we call deficits. If we have 1 lakh total, if income is 80,000, we call it as surplus 20,000. So it is same happen to credit side as well, because when expenses are increased, suppose it's 1,50,000, again here you need to write 50,000 deficits. Same exactly like that. So these are all the features. If we move to formats of income and expenditure account, you already have a basic idea right now because we already explained the meaning, features. By now you know the basic idea of how the format is look like and how it is to be. Here you can see here the starting with debtors and creditors. It always has left side debtors and right side creditors. So we'll denote it as debtors and creditors instead of left and right. So okay, debtors always have expenses, creditors always have income. It is just dead opposite to receipts and payments account. In receipts and payment account, it was opposite to what we are recording. Income will be recorded in debit side, expenses will be recorded in credit side. But here expenses will be recorded in a debit side and income will be recorded in credit side. So there will be 2 columns, expenditure and income. Expenditure will be in debit side, income will be in credit side. So we'll start with the expenditure. What are the expenditure will be recorded in this format? First of all, starting with wages and salary. If you have any wages or salary to be paid to someone, it will be recorded in expenditure side. So next is rent. If any rent is there, you will be recording in expenditure side. So these are all the expenses you are recording. You can look here, rates and tax, insurance. If there is an insurance you have to pay, means you will record here. Printing and stationery, that's an expenses, so you'll record here. And postage and courier will be recorded in debit side as an expense. Telephone charges, electricity charges, advertisement Entertainment fees, audit fees, honorarium fees, that's an expense used to give a fees to someone who renders service for your non-profit organization. Next is repair and renewals. Upkeep of ground. Upkeep of ground is nothing but maintenance of ground, so that's an expense. Convenience. If any convenience you have paid means that's an expense. Subscription to newspapers and periodicals. If you have any subscription for newspapers and periodicals, magazines, whatever, you need to pay as an expense, so you will record in expenditure side. Next is payment towards tournament expenses, match expenses, prize expenses, sports expenses. These are all the expenses you made towards a particular events. If there is any separate fund for that item, you will be deducting from that item. So next is cost of medicine sold. If your not-profit organization is a charitable hospital, then in that case you will get sale of cost of medicine sold. So in that case you need to enter cost of medicine sold if that is an hospital. Next is loss on sale of assets. If you are selling your asset to a loss, that's a loss for you. The how much amount you are getting lost, that will be recorded in expenditure side in debit. Next is depreciation on fixed asset. If your company having a fixed assets called furniture, sports materials, books, yearly it has a depreciation value like some amount or some percentage, you'll be recording in expense side in data. Next is drama expenses. That's a drama expense which when you're performing any drama skits or anything like that, that's a drama expense. Next is sundry expenses, and at last is surplus. You will not recording right away when you enter the expense side. You will wait for the income side as well to fill up. So instead of recording surplus here right now, we'll move on to income side. Let us check what are the income side entries. So starting with income side, subscription is the first thing. You will get subscription. On that heading you will record all the income from the subscription. You are getting this much amount, so you will be recording in income. Next is donation. Donation is something you receive from donors. So here we have two options. If they are not mentioned anything that is general, you'll enter here. If that is revenue proportion, or they will mention like this, half of the donation should be capitalized. That means like already mentioned in features, it only record revenue in nature, it won't record capital nature. So if they mention in the question half of the donation should be capitalized, you have to remove the half amount. So you have to divide it by, like they will mention how much amount should be capitalized like that. Here you are only recording revenue proportion, so only revenue proportion, nothing else. Entrance fees. Entrance fees, again it will be apply same thing to donation. Entrance fees is capitalized means you have to again deduct that. If they are not given anything, generally you will enter here considering it's been general. Next is interest on deposits. If you are deposit your money in a bank or somewhere, if you are getting interest for that, we'll be recording in income side. So next is interest on investment. Again it is an interest, so it's income. Next is dividend on investment. If you are getting dividend for your investment, it is just like an interest, so you'll be recording in income side. Next is grants in aid. If government is providing some grants, that is considered as an income, so we'll be recording in income. Next is profit on sale of assets. If you are getting profit when you are selling assets or investment, something like that, you will be recording in income side because that's an income. We got profit. If you are selling old sports materials in order to buy new sports material, that will be recorded here because that's an income. You are just reselling the old sports material. Next is locker rent. If you are giving facility of locker rent, they'll mention in the question locker rent paid, locker rent received. Locker rent paid is nothing but an expenditure, received is an income, so you'll be recording an income in this format. Next is proceeds from drama or consent. If you are performing any drama or something like that, consents, and you are getting income from that, that will be recorded here. Next is sale of medicine. In case it's an hospital, you'll be recording the income which is generated by sale of the medicines, so that's an income. Next is fees from patients. If patient is paying fee, minimum nominal fee, if that is a not-profit organization, they will be paying minimum amount of fees, that will be recorded as income. So next is fees for student. If that is in a school, you will get some amount as a fees, so that will be recorded in income side. Next is miscellaneous receipts or sundry receipts. So these are the format. Before closing the format, you need to make sure whether this income and expenditure account has given surplus or deficits. Here, if we consider as an example, we are getting total income 1 lakh rupees and expenses total 80,000. We need to subtract that and write remaining 20,000 in expenses side to make composite and write it as surplus, because our expenses is less than the income, 20,000 less than the income, so that is considered as surplus. If our expenses is more than that, imagine if it is 1,20,000 expenses for 1 lakh income, 20,000 will be deficits. So this is the format.